Welcome everyone to the third annual 30 Clubs, 30 Previews on the Real Sports Talk and the Nation Sports Blog. I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. And Justin, over the course of the next month, we will be breaking down every MLB team.
That is right. Over the next month and beyond, me and Tim are going to be covering every single Major League team. We're going to be covering prospects. We're going to be covering the front office, lineups. We're pretty much going to be covering everything you guys could possibly even imagine. This is going to be the best year for the MLB 30 clubs in 30 days. And at the end of it, after every team is already done and previewed, at the end of this countdown, we're going to be giving you guys our award predictions, our World Series predictions, and beyond that.
Yeah, it is going to be crazy. Stay tuned because your favorite team could be next. Welcome, guys, to the 30 Clubs and 30 Previews MLB special we do here every year at the Real Sports Talk and the Nation Sports Blog. I'm Tim Kelly, joined by Justin Godsey. And Justin, this takes a lot of energy, a lot of hard work, but we certainly enjoy giving you guys these in-depth previews of your favorite team before every MLB season.
Yeah, dude, this is going to be awesome. Today we got the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to be kicking it off with a very entertaining team, which made a lot of moves this year during this offseason, and we're here to give you guys the coverage.
So, beginning with what they did last season that led to a lot of the moves they made. Last season, the Diamondbacks, who were in the playoffs in 2011, I should say. Last year, the Diamondbacks had a pretty disappointing season, going 81-81 and falling back to third place. It was a team throughout a lot of the year that you felt like they had the chance to make that charge. No one ran away with this division, and people forget that because the Giants won the World Series. But the Diamondbacks certainly could have won this division. The Dodgers never really fully clicked last season. So it's a division that, even in a disappointing year, the Diamondbacks weren't too far off from winning. As far as their manager, Kirk Gibson enters his third full season under this team. I think he has done a very good job with this team. I think he relates with the players very well because he was a very good MLB player himself with the Detroit Tigers and Los Angeles Dodgers. So I don't think there's any question he's done a very good job as a manager. That being said, if this team has a below 500 record this year, he might be in some hot water in terms of his job future. This offseason, Justin, you mentioned they had a very, very busy offseason. They signed Cody Ross. That was the move that set everything else in place. They signed Cody Ross to a 3-year, $26 million deal, luring him away from the Boston Red Sox. Justin, what did you think about this signing?
I was really impressed with the Diamondbacks after this signing because when you look at the time, the Diamondbacks did not have Chris Young. He was traded away to the Oakland Athletics, and they really needed an outfield. They were really dependent on Adam Eaton, who was in their minor league system at AAA, and they were like, okay, we'll start building some more depth in our outfield. And Cody Ross, who at the time with the Boston Red Sox was not really really happy with the team, so it seemed really unlikely that he was going to return to the Boston Red Sox coming into this upcoming season. But the Diamondbacks went out there and they dished out some great money for 3 years. I think Tim, you said it was about $24 million, and that's really great. I really like it. The guy has great pop. He's going to provide some great depth to this outfield. It's more than likely to be the starting center fielder for the no longer Chris Young in Arizona.
Yeah, and I think to a level they overpaid Cody Ross, but he's going to be a guy, he's good in the clubhouse. I like this move, and that led to a few other moves. You mentioned earlier in the offseason they traded away Chris Young, which got them Cliff Pennington, who will be their starting shortstop headed into this season. So that move got them Cliff Pennington. They traded away Chris Young, and just a couple weeks ago, they traded Justin Upton to the Atlanta Braves. They get back in return Martin Prado, who is going to be a very valuable piece of this team. He will start at third base, and in all likelihood, you'll see him at numerous different positions this year. And it also got them Randall Delgado, and adding in Delgado to a rotation that features Ian Kennedy, Daniel Hudson when he comes back, Brandon McCarthy, who you signed, Trevor Cahill, Wade Miley, Tyler Skaggs, who we'll get to later on. This is a rotation that is primed to be very successful in the future because the amount of depth they've added. That being said, Justin, they traded away Justin Upton, which allowed Cody Ross to move, or which Cody Ross will move over to center. Now Gerardo Parra will start, and Jason Kubel will be their left fielder. So I know that a lot of people, talent-wise, weren't happy with the trade away of Justin Upton, but I think they got back a good package in return for him. Maybe not as good as they could have got from the Texas Rangers, but they got back a good package, and they're in a position where I think a lot of people felt like Justin Upton wasn't a great clubhouse guy for this team.
Well, he was a great player with the Arizona Diamondbacks, don't get me wrong, but with me, I live out here in Arizona. I do attend a lot of the Diamondbacks, the games. There's no more Uptown, and the fans are also really upset that Upton. But when you go into the organizational wise, Justin Upton, from what I was listening to on MLB Network, was Kirk Gibson and Justin Upton were just not clicking anymore, and Upton was really upset. I think a couple of times this season, I think Upton was benched, is what I was listening to on MLB Network, and Upton was like, okay. He's upset, kind of like how any MLB player, any starting, right fielder, which Upton played at the time for the Diamondbacks, would be if I was benched. So him being traded, being reunited with his brother, B.J. Upton over in Atlanta, but you're getting back a huge, nice pair of, young talent, and you're also getting a nice Major League veteran in Martin Prado over at third base. And Tim, I'm sorry to go in a little bit more depth here, but when you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks from the 2012 year, you don't have a huge chunk of the players that you had. You don't have Ryan Roberts anymore, Steven Drew, Chris Young, just to name those guys. Those are three good guys that was on the team last year that are not with the organization. So, the Diamondbacks went out this offseason and got some great talent back.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the Diamondbacks are a team right now that I look at as a World Series contender. But with a lot of the young talent that they got back, not only did they get Prado and Delgado, but they got a good package. They got, I believe, a first baseman and a third baseman. This is a rotation that features legitimately 8 guys who at some point in this season could be solid MLB starters. They have some trade pieces. This is a team that is set up to be very successful in the near future because of all the depth that they have. They have a great bench, which we'll get to. But while they traded away Justin Upton, they also did go out and acquire a few people. They acquired Heath Bell from the Marlins, who signed a 3-year, $27 million deal, just completely bombed in his 1 year there. I'm not sure if his pitches are as fast as they once were. His fastball is not at the same speed, and that's one thing scouts were a little bit worried about with Heath Bell. That being said, coming to Arizona, he has J.J. Putz as the closer. He has Hernandez, Ziegler in the bullpen. So there's not a ton of pressure on Heath Bell. He's probably going to be either a middle reliever or a setup man, and if things don't work out, the Diamondbacks still have a solid bullpen around him that they're not really relying on Heath Bell. If things do work out, then they add in another great arm to an already solid bullpen, so that's a move I like. And then, Justin, they signed Brandon McCarthy to add some more rotation depth. He will likely come into the season as their number 2 starter behind Ian Kennedy. And Ian Kennedy did not have a great bounce-back season last year after a breakout year, so Brandon McCarthy is not maybe a bona fide ace, but you know what you're going to get out of Brandon McCarthy because he's a pretty solid MLB pitcher.
I think Brandon McCarthy, yes, he's coming back from that head injury. I think Brandon McCarthy's going to come back and have a phenomenal year with the team. I guess you can call it a bounce back year from that injury. It was cut short last season, his season. But, Brandon McCarthy, I do have a gut feeling that he's going to come into with the Arizona Diamondbacks and pitch actually pretty well. So, as long as this team can back up some runs,
Yeah, no question about that. And that goes for pretty much any pitcher. Now, a couple signings that were made that are some minor guys. Eric Chavez was brought in from the New York Yankees. Eric Chavez still has some ability to play third base, can back up at first base as well. When he's healthy, he's always been a very good fielder, a good hitter. I like the move of adding Eric Chavez in, and now with A-Rod out for a majority of the season, Yankees fans are not happy that Eric Chavez is gone. You have Eric Hinsky, who you add in, who is a veteran, struggled last year in Atlanta. He can play some first base. He used to be able to play the outfield and third base. I think you could maybe see him used in right field a little bit. Not too likely because you have a ton of outfield depth right now. So I think it's likely Eric Hinsky just backs up Paul Goldschmidt at first base. And then Will Nieves coming over from the Colorado Rockies. Will Nieves will be your backup catcher. So all in all, it was a very busy offseason for the Arizona Diamondbacks, to say the least. And overall, Justin, I think for right now, did the Diamondbacks make themselves a better team for this year? Maybe not, but for what they did for the future of this team, I like this offseason for the D-backs.
I love the all-season for the D-backs also, but minus the Justin Upton deal, I think Justin Upton should still be on the team, but you know what? You gotta have, a positive atmosphere inside the organization. But, I like the future of this team. You got Randall, Delgado, like we pretty much covered everything. You got the upcoming prospects that we're going to get to here later. You got Tyler Skaggs, Patrick Corbin, even Wade Miley. I mean, this pitching rotation is good, great, it's young. And then you have your the infield and the outfield. You got Kubal, the power guy. Cody Ross has some power. Then you got the average guy over there in right field, a solid average hitter in Gerardo Parra. This team has a very bright future. I think this team, somewhere down the line, is going to be a top contender in the National League West.
No doubt about it. And it's not out of the question that they couldn't do that this year, but I'm not sure it's 100% likely. What we're going to do next is we're going to go position by position, and some people can try and tell you that this isn't as exciting as people want to hear, but the bottom line is you're not going to get a more in-depth breakdown. We say that and we mean it. And going position by position, you don't get any more in-depth than that. We will begin behind the plate at catcher with one of the better catchers in the MLB, one of my top 10 catchers, and Miguel Montero, who last year hit .286 with 15 home runs and 88 RBIs. The season before that put up similar numbers with a .282 ERA, 18 home runs, 86 RBIs. Got a big extension during the season last year. To me, Miguel Montero right now is one of the best catchers in the MLB. He'll be 30 this season, so you'd still think he has another 2, 3, 4 years at best left. So Miguel Montero is one of the better catchers, and I like him behind the plate. Diamondbacks should feel comfortable.
I agree with you, Tim. Tim is Miguel Montero. This guy is a very good overall hitter. This guy can get average, .286 last year. Can hit for power, 15 home runs last year. This is something that the Diamondbacks need. They need that power, and you're getting out of Miguel Montero. Now, I have Miguel Montero ranked at number 4 in my top 10 rankings at catcher. I think Miguel Montero can go up in the rankings. I just think this is a guy who needs to stay healthy. This guy can't supply, average, can't supply home runs. But you know what? I like what Miguel Montero does bring to the plate, and you know what? I would really enjoy having Miguel Montero as my starting catcher.
Behind him, you have Will Nieves, who we mentioned earlier. He's a veteran, 31, 32 years old. Or actually a little bit older than that now. He's 34, 35. Will Nieves has had a pretty solid career. He's not going to blow you away, but even last season combined with Colorado, and then he finished the season off with Arizona, overall in about 32 games, just over 100 at-bats, he hit over 300. So he's going to give you a decent bat off the bench. Nothing special, but Will Nieves is a catcher that knows how to handle the pitching staff, and he's someone that you can feel comfortable throwing out there once every 5 or 6 games. Now, if for any reason Miguel Montero were to go down with an injury, then obviously you're probably not going to be too comfortable with Will Nieves going on an everyday basis. But as just your backup catcher, I feel comfortable with Will Nieves as the backup catcher. Now, looking over to first base is my breakout player of the year in Paul Goldschmidt. Last year, hit .286 with 20 home runs, 82 RBIs. I remember him hitting a home run on the first game he played, and I felt like this guy is going to be a stud. This guy's going to hit 30 or 40 home runs this year, and it didn't turn out to be that way. That being said, I think I overjudged his power a little bit. He's going to hit, I think, closer to 300 this year and closer to 30 home runs, and with that, he puts himself closer to 100 RBIs, and Paul Goldschmidt is one of the better young first basemen in the game, and with Justin Upton's bat out of this lineup now, Paul Goldschmidt's one of the people that the Diamondbacks really need to step up if they expect to contend in 2013.
Paul Goldschmidt, like you said, Tim, Paul Goldschmidt probably the best young first baseman in Major League Baseball right now. 20 home runs, 82 RBIs, batted .286 last year. You mentioning Justin Upton's bat out of the lineup. Now a lot of focus is going to be going over to the young and talented Paul Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt, this is a guy who I look down to at Double A and Triple A, with the Reno Aces. This is a guy who actually has really great substantial power, can hit, on average, on a best year, Tim. I can see this guy ranging up to maybe 33 home runs. He has that power to do so. And Paul Goldschmidt as a breakout star this year, that is also more than likely. That could be it. I think this is the year that he can go above and beyond 20 home runs. And you know what? This is a great defensive type of guy compared to Mark Teixeira. Great defensive skill for Paul Goldschmidt over at first base.
Yeah, he is pretty similar to Mark Teixeira because he brings a glove, he brings a bat. He's probably not going to hit quite as many home runs as Mark Teixeira did, but I think he's right now. He might even be better than Mark Teixeira at this point because Mark Teixeira has declined. But we'll save that for the Yankees preview. Eric Hinskey's going to be the backup over at first base. You also have some other names in the mix. You have Eric Chavez can potentially play first base. You have Keila Kaihui on the roster as a potential backup, one of my favorite players of all time. But he'll likely be in AAA or wherever. He might not even make the MLB roster or the 40-man roster this season. But looking at Eric Hinskey, he had a down year with Atlanta last year, hit 197 with 2 home runs. But prior to that, he's been a guy who you feel pretty confident coming off the bench with. He spent time in Toronto, Tampa Bay, Boston, and then a few years in Atlanta. He brings the ability to play in the outfield, maybe not the greatest fielder in the outfield, but he has the ability to play there. He can play first base. He has some pop off the bench. Last year he only had 2 home runs, but the year before that he had 10 home runs, and in 2010 he had 11. In the past he's had 4 seasons of 20-plus home runs. That was back when he was a starter with the Blue Jays. But overall, I think Eric Hinskey's a good backup. He's not going to be a starter or anything like that. And with Paul Goldschmidt having the season I expect him to have, I'm not sure how much time we're going to see Eric Hinskey get. I think it's actually more likely we see him spell Gerardo Parra and Jason Kubel in the outfield because neither of them are superstars. They're solid players, but neither of them are superstars. Justin, one of your favorite players is starting at second. That's Aaron Hill, I should say. Aaron Hill last year in his first full season with the Diamondbacks after coming over in a waiver deal the season before in 2011. Aaron Hill hit 156, hit 302, or in 156 games, I should say, hit 302 with 26 home runs and 85 RBIs, hit for the cycle twice, had, I think, the second best season of his career with the 2009 season where he hit 36 home runs, being the best. Aaron Hill has never been consistent, and that's why the Blue Jays ultimately moved on from him. But we got the Aaron Hill last year that looked like one of the better first or second basemen in the game, and that's scary. If he can come back again this year and hit close to 300 with 25 home runs, 85 RBIs, Aaron Hill gives the Diamondbacks just another solid hitter in this lineup.
I'm a huge fan of Aaron Hill. Been following this guy since his days with the Toronto Blue Jays. Last year, we all saw it not back to back. We had 2 cycles come out of him. How often do we see the same player hit 2 cycles in the same season? We barely even see that. And Aaron Hill pulled it out last year. Phenomenal season. 26 home runs, 85 RBIs, batted 302. I was really disappointed that he was not elected into the All-Star game. I was really upset about that. I think that guy really determined that he's going to be an elite second baseman with those 2 cycles. And I like his bat. Great power hitter, great average hitter, as we saw last year, 302. I can see him having the same season that he had last year. As long as he can also, he has to go off on a good start first, and that's what he needs to do. He needs to be consistent. He's falling off a little bit in the late months of the season. With Toronto, and he's coming over with the Arizona Diamondbacks too. I think the National League is his type of division.
All right, so we look over at his backup, who also has the ability to play shortstop, third base. Willie Bloomquist is a very valuable backup for not only his ability with the bat. Last year he had 302 in 80 games, 324 at-bats. Will not give you a ton of pop. He had 0 home runs, but he gave you 23 RBIs, gave you 7 stolen bases. So Willie Bloomquist is a nice utility man, more used as like a pinch runner, as a guy in the field to step in late inning situations, but he can also come in and hit for you. I like Willie Bloomquist as a backup, not only because he's all the things I mentioned, but because of his ability to shift around. And that's one of the things that is so valuable that the Diamondbacks have on this bench and in the starting lineup. You look at Eric Hinske, can play more than one position. Eric Chavez, Willie Bloomquist, Martin Prado, who's a starter at third, can play pretty much every position on the diamond. Cody Ross can play pretty much every position in the outfield. So if there are injuries, this team has the ability to mix and match and make things work, and that's a valuable thing if a team is going to contend. Now, their starting shortstop is Cliff Pennington, who they acquired in the offseason from the Oakland Athletics in the Chris Young trade. They recently signed him to a 2-year, $5 million deal. Last year in 125 games for the A's, Cliff Pennington hit .215 with 6 home runs and 28 RBIs. He's a guy that has never given you a great average because, I mean, even in his better years, you're getting a .250, a .260 type average. But what he does bring to the table is the ability to steal bases. Twice in his career, actually 3 times in his career, he's stolen over 30 bases. So that's valuable. But Justin, this is not a guy that they're bringing in for his ability to be a great hitter. He brings a pretty solid glove at shortstop, and that's one of the things that's going to be the most valuable to this team.
Yeah, no doubt. Cliff Pennington, great defensive player. I think that's the main reason why they brought him in. And also, he could also be a work in progress for the Arizona Diamondbacks. His average wasn't too high. I mean, .215, really disappointing for Cliff Pennington. He's still young, still valuable for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think this is a guy who can get you, he's not going to get you on a home run, a whole lot. Last year he hit 6 home runs, 28 RBIs. But you know what? He's going to bring that glove. He's going to bring really great speed to the base path, which the Diamondbacks really do need. And, I think Cliff Pennington could be a work in progress for this team.
Yeah, he's someone that they hope throughout the next couple of years can get that average up, can develop the ability to play a little bit more small ball, and that's a valuable piece to this team as I would tend to think over the next few years will add some more power to this lineup. Now, at third base, we're looking at Martin Prado. At shortstop, Willie Bloomquist will also be the backup. At third base, we're looking at Martin Prado, who came over just a couple weeks ago from the Atlanta Braves, and they are trying to sign him to an extension throughout the next couple days. We'll see if that happens before they enter spring training this weekend. Martin Prado is so valuable to a team. I've watched him with the Atlanta Braves for quite a few years now. He can play every position pretty much except catcher. Now, you're not going to see him at first base or certain positions, but he can play there. Last year with the Braves, hit .301 with 10 home runs and 70 RBIs. Often gave people spells in the outfield, stepped in when Chipper Jones was injured, and the Braves anticipated he would be Chipper Jones' successor. That did not happen because they had the chance to land Justin Upton, and they went with it. So the Diamondbacks moved on from Chris Johnson, also, who they got some pop from last year, but I think they get a better average hitter with Martin Prado. They get a guy who stole 17 bases in 21 attempts last year, and Martin Prado is going to be a valuable piece of this team because he does not strike out a ton. He gets on base, and he's a valuable guy in the clubhouse. Martin Prado is one of those guys that he might not be an elite player in the MLB, but you want to have him on your team.
I will take Martin Prado on my team any day. What you see is what you get out of Martin Prado. What you see as a solid average hitter, .301, can hit you home runs time to time. And during his entire tenure with these Atlanta Braves, you saw nothing but great baseball play by Martin Prado. And another skill that is also good to have if you're Martin Prado and the Diamondbacks, you want to sign Martin Prado, who you said that he's still waiting for a contract. He already got a new contract with the Diamondbacks. 4-year, $40 million contract. That is awesome. I like that deal for him because you know what? You're getting a solid average hitter who has some pop, and you're also looking at a guy who can play every position except catcher. Put him in the outfield, no problem. Play him in the infield, no problem. Third base. When you think of mostly third basemen, you think of, like a Kevin Youkilis, just to throw out some names, A-Rod. Martin Prado, this is a guy who is not, a big built type of guy who can go out there and hit you 20 home runs a year. He's a much smaller, more flexible type of guy, and that's what I really like this duo, not the duo, the comparison right there with, the Diamondbacks, the fielding coaches, and Martin Prado is going to make him more versatile over at third.
I like the addition of Martin Prado. I also like the backup that they had in Eric Chavez, who last year with the New York Yankees, he was able to stay healthy, which is something he's always had an issue with. Remember, Eric Chavez in the early 2000s to mid-2000s was a guy that could hit you 35 home runs, 110 RBIs, was a great player. They let Jason Giambi in his prime go, but they kept Eric Chavez. And ultimately, injuries killed his career there. He refound himself in New York with the ability not only to come off the bench and supply power and RBIs, but last year he was even able to get back to what another thing that made him very successful was his ability to field so well. And Eric Chavez last year was able to play some more third base. He had been playing more first base for the Yankees in his first season there. So I like Eric Chavez a lot as a backup. Hit 16 home runs last year, so he certainly brings some pop off the bench. Eric Chavez should be a valuable piece. And again, if someone gets hurt, you can move Martin Prado to whatever position, and Eric Chavez is a guy that you can start 4 or 5 games a week, assuming he's able to stay healthy. And that's a valuable piece to have. Looking out in left field, you have Jason Kubel starting in left field. Jason Kubel had a very good season last year. The Orioles were interested in him in the offseason. A lot of teams were interested in Jason Kubel, who was also a former Minnesota Twin, because teams felt like they were going to hold on to Justin Upton and ultimately trade Kubel. It ends up they keep Kubel, and judging off last season, Kubel can have another very good season. He had 253 with 30 home runs, 90 RBIs, took 57 walks. Jason Kubel will not give you a great average, but power-wise, he is probably the best power hitter on this team, either him or Paul Goldschmidt.
You know, it's going to be a slugger. It's going to be a slugfest. I mean, comparing if you're going to be going with Kubel or Paul Goldschmidt. But you know what, Jason Kubel, like you did say, Tim, he's not going to wow you with an average, but you know he's going to wow you with the home runs that he can hit. 30 home runs, 90 RBIs last season. I have a good feeling that he has the power. He has, you know, the charisma to go back out there this upcoming season and have, you know, the ability to go out there and hit another 30 home runs. And that's what the D-backs need. Him and Paul Goldschmidt are, you know, the prestige power bats in this batting lineup for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
And taking Justin Upton out, that puts an even bigger emphasis on Jason Kubel. It'll be interesting for me to see if Jason Kubel sees as many pitches as he did last year with Justin Upton out of this lineup. Teams may begin to pitch around him a little more, especially if Paul Goldschmidt is not able to step up. Teams may say, we're not going to give up a chance that this guy changes the game with one swing. We're going to make him take us the other way. We're going to make him try and get singles and doubles rather than hit home runs, or even have him take walks. So it should be interesting to see what they do with Jason Kubel this year. Now, as we look to the backups in the outfield, the people in the outfield, you have Gerardo Parra as a potential backup in left field, but he will be starting in right field. So you go to A.J. Pollock, who is going to be one of their main utility guys in the outfield. Pollock is a younger guy coming up. And Justin, what do you think about A.J. Pollock?
A.J. Pollock, I don't know a whole lot about A.J. Pollock, but going off of stats last year with the Arizona Diamondbacks, you know, 31 games last year, you know, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, batted .247. You know what? It's a big question on where is he going to start. Are they actually going to take a chance with him at the major league level, or are they going to send him down to AAA? Personal opinion here, I think that it's more than likely that he's going to be starting the season down at the AAA level. Just build up, get some, you know, try to get more power to your swing. I think this is, well, not power. I can see him, you know, just being down there, just playing regular baseball, and then when his time has come, you know, give him the call up, because you know what, also over in left field, you're going to be going with Eric Hinsky, so it's very debatable right now if they're going to go with, you know, A.J. Pollock here.
It depends if Eric Hinsky, if they really believe he can play the outfield. If Eric Hinsky's able to play the outfield, then Pollock will start the year in AAA. If Eric Hinsky struggles, in whether it's spring training or during the season, then you have a nice insurance option in A.J. Pollock. So it's a nice piece to add in. In center field, one of their biggest offseason signings, Cody Ross, coming over from the Arizona Diamondbacks, was the NLCS MVP a few years ago with the San Francisco Giants. Cody Ross is another guy that you need to have him stay healthy, but when he's healthy, you can count on a solid .260 average and about 25 home runs from Cody Ross. He's not going to be anything more than that, but he's one of those guys. He reminds me of Nick Swisher, guys like that he's not going to blow you away or win an MVP, but you can plug him into the lineup and be almost guaranteed that he's going to give you an exact amount of home runs, an exact average, and you know his deficiencies, but you also know what he's very good at, and that's valuable to a team, not to mention his veteran leadership and his ability to play more than one position in the outfield.
Like he kind of reminds you, like with Martin Prado, he is also another guy that can play the outfield, multiple positions in the outfield. Cody Ross, Tim, I agree with you a lot on these things that you've been saying. And Cody Ross is a guy that will go out there and get you, those 25 home runs on an average in a season, and has a great solid average to tack onto it. Cody Ross is a must-have and a must-be healthy guy, every day for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, Cody Ross does. I just hope that Cody Ross does have a good home in Arizona with the Arizona Diamondbacks, because you know what? He's going to be coming back to the National League West. He was with the San Francisco Giants. And you know what? I have this good feeling that with the great connection with with the hitting coaches, I think Cody Ross will have a good attitude with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and that's what this Diamondbacks club needs.
Yeah, and bringing in his leadership is important. Taking Justin Upton is double the talent of Cody Ross. Cody Ross is a hard worker and a better clubhouse guy, and the Diamondbacks hope that chemistry is what is able to help turn this team around, which a lot of people think is one of the things that hurt them last year. Backing him up in center field is Adam Eaton, not to be confused with the former pitcher Adam Eaton. You have Adam Eaton, the center fielder here, who last year in 22 games hit .259 with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Hasn't had a ton of major league experience, but in the minor leagues, he was a very solid average hitter. And he's never going to give you a ton of pop, but he can give you RBIs. He's stolen 40 bases in the minor leagues total, so he's a good guy to bring in, not only in the field, but as a pinch runner. I like Adam Eaton off the bench. He's not going to bring a ton of pop, like I said, but he's a nice piece to have in your outfield. In right field, Gerardo Parra is going to be your starter. He also has the ability to play all 3 outfield positions. So again, if Cody Ross just isn't working out in center field, you have the option of moving Gerardo Parra to center field. If Jason Kubel were to be traded or anything like that, or go down with an injury, you can move Parra to left. You have so many different possible combinations with this team that it's going to be interesting to see what ultimately does end up happening. Last year, Gerardo Parra with the Diamondbacks hit .273, 7 home runs, 36 RBIs. You hope that because he doesn't bring a ton of power, he gets closer to 2 years ago when he hit .292 with 8 home runs, 46 RBIs, gave you a few more RBIs, and average nearly 20 points higher, close to 300. And he's a guy that can steal you a decent amount of bases, probably 15 to 20 bases is what I would expect this year out of Gerardo Parra.
Gerardo Parra, it's still up in the air right now over in right field, as Gerardo Parra is going to be taking over a huge role, replacing Justin Upton right now. But there are still, some questions up in the air with Cody Ross. Well, Adam Eaton over in center field, who's going to be backing up Cody Ross now. It was reported that it was supposed to be Adam Eaton starting in center field, but when Cody Ross came over, he was obviously named center fielder because he's a top player in Major League Baseball. And then Adam Eaton, a team that what the Diamondbacks have a lot of hopes for. And now I can really see, a type of competition in spring training that will determine the official role over in right field. Adam Eaton versus Gerardo Parra here. But you know what? I like the favorite here. I like the Diamondbacks right now. I'm looking off their team website. They have Gerardo Parra starting in right field, and I think that's going to be the best option for you. A guy that gives you, a solid .273 average last year. Hoping that he can come back and, reproduce what he can do from last year. He doesn't give you, a solid, 15 to 16 home runs a year, but 7 home runs for a right fielder, a solid average right fielder in Gerardo Parra. That I'll be okay, with 7 home runs a year for him.
Gerardo Parra and Adam Eaton are both left-handed hitters, so going with a platoon situation doesn't seem very likely. My guess is that one of the guys ultimately is the starter, and I think that is Gerardo Parra. So that's what we look at in the Diamondbacks lineup. Now, looking at their starting rotation, there's a lot of questions, and questions in a good way. A lot of people almost get nervous when their teams have too many starters, but that's actually a very good problem to have because, as we saw last year with guys like Ian Kennedy, not everyone has great years. You see guys like Daniel Hudson go down. So you want to have some extra depth onto this team, and that is certainly what the Arizona Diamondbacks have here. They have legitimately 8 guys who could be starters by the time that this season is over. So let's begin with the first one, the ace, Ian Kennedy. 2 years ago, led the MLB in wins, was 21-4 with a 2.88 ERA, pitched 222 innings, which was near the MLB league lead, through a complete game shutout. Really was one of the best pitchers in the MLB at a whip of 1.09. Last year, came back to earth a little bit at a 15-12 record with a 4.02 ERA, still threw over 200 innings. I don't know exactly what Ian Kennedy to expect this year, because 3 years ago in 2010 he had a 3.80 ERA. So my guess is that if you can get a 3.40 ERA out of Ian Kennedy this year, that's the area to be looking at. Probably about a 17-10 record with a 3.40 ERA. That's what I expect out of Ian Kennedy to be a solid pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks this year.
That's really close to what I have, Tim. I just think that with the power behind this team, Ian Kennedy, for any team basically, but Ian Kennedy, this is a team that brings the average, that brings the hitting, and brings the power, with Goldschmidt and Kubo and at times Cody Ross. I just think this team needs to rack up the runs and give Ian Kennedy that space to work with and, go out there, pitch great games, and hope for the best. And I think Ian Kennedy is a great option at number 1 for this team. A guy that can go out there and give, those 200 innings a season. Last year 15 and 12, his ERA did not surprise a lot of us. A really down year for Ian Kennedy. And I hope that he can come back and we can see the Ian Kennedy from a couple of years ago.
I think it's likely we see one in between, but getting a 3.40 ERA would be nice out of him. Brandon McCarthy, they signed in the offseason, coming over from the Oakland Athletics. Brandon McCarthy is a pretty solid pitcher as well. Last year, before getting injured, was 8-6 with a 3.24 ERA, an ERA at 3.24 ERA. Sorry, my bad. 111 innings and a 1.25 WHIP. The problem with Brandon McCarthy, again, it's staying healthy. Whether it's been in his time in Texas, whether it's been in Oakland, Chicago, he was always supposed to be a very good young pitcher, and he never really figured out in his first few stops. Finally clicked in Oakland, and now coming over to Arizona, I would expect a guy where you're going to get about a 3.60, 3.70 ERA. That's about the area I expect Brandon McCarthy to be in. Aim there, and if he pitches better, then you can be surprised. But expecting a 3.24 ERA, to me, doesn't seem very likely again.
Well, I have a really negative atmosphere, in this pitching rotation with the way how it's leveled out. If this is going to work, I think that the Diamondbacks should go with, number 1, Ian Kennedy, no doubt. Number 2, should give it to, Wade Miley. But, looking at Brandon McCarthy, a great pitcher, no doubt about that. Staying healthy is the key. Last year, with that dreadful hit to his head, I felt really bad for him. Everybody felt really bad for Brandon McCarthy because, I think he sustained a big concussion, which sidelined the rest of his 2012 campaign with the Oakland Athletics. A highly watched pitcher in free agency this year. The Diamondbacks were able to snag him off the market, and it's going to be a great pitcher. It's going to be a great pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks coming into 2013.
Their number 3 starter, another former Oakland Athletic, spent last year in Arizona, is Trevor Cahill. 3 years ago in 2010, Trevor Cahill had an 18-8 record with a 2.97 ERA, and I watched that entire season, and I said this guy is going to be a stud. He comes back, 2011 starts off 6-0, 2.20 ERA, and I looked like a genius, and then the season went off the handle. Last year came back at a 13-12 record with a 3.78 ERA, gave you 200 innings for the second straight year, and essentially what I've realized with him is he's not the legitimate ace I thought he would end up turning out to be, but he's a guy that you can count on 200 innings from. He's a guy that you can count on a decent whip, and you're also going to get a record that can get you, or a pitcher I should say, that can get you 14 to 15 wins with an ERA between 3.60 and 3.80, and that's solid out of your number 3 starter. Is it great? No, but it's a pretty solid guy, and Trevor Cahill is a pretty solid pitcher.
I agree. Trevor Cahill still has a lot of talents in him. I like the way the Diamondbacks and the Oakland Athletics. I mean, Kevin Towers and Billy Beane have got to be best friends with all the deals that they've been dishing out with each other. And Trevor Cahill, Tim, I also have to agree. I think that with Trevor Cahill coming over to the Arizona Diamondbacks, I thought this was a guy who had, Cy Young caliber potential, but it just really didn't connect the dots. And last year wasn't the best, but I think Trevor Cahill does have, he's going to be kind of pissed off, hoping to come into the season all, getting ready to pitch baseball, hopes that he can turn it around. So I have, looking at stats for last season, 13-12 with a 3.78 ERA, I wrote down some comparable stats where I can see him shooting for this year. I have about a 14-12 type of win-loss record for him this upcoming season with about 310, 320. I think it can be lowered down a little bit, but 378, it was just a very different Trevor Cahill we saw last season.
At your number 4 starter, excuse me, you have the aforementioned Wade Miley. Wade Miley last year in his rookie season went 16-11 with a 3.33 ERA, was among the best rookies in the MLB, ended up going to the All-Star game, pitched nearly 200 innings. I have concerns about him for one reason, because when pitchers go from pitching 40 innings in 2011, and that was 40 innings in the major leagues and 129 in the minors, to pitching nearly 200, usually the year after that, their arms are tired and they struggle. I hope that I'm wrong, but I have concerns about Wade Miley. I think that this could very well be a season where he has an ERA over 4. I still think he has a bright future, but I think he has a sophomore slump this year, comes back next year, and that's when he really breaks out and establishes himself as a very solid MLB pitcher. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. Very good young talent, but the bottom line is that when you come back in that second year after throwing a ton of innings the first year, it usually doesn't have good effects on your arm.
This is what the Diamondbacks have got to have the production that Wade Miley had last year. They can't have this sophomore slump out of him. I think Wade Miley had what it takes to be the number 2 pitcher in this pitching rotation. Looking at his stats from last year, 16-11, 3.33 average, and had 144 strikeouts, made the All-Star roster. A great thing right there for him. But the Diamondbacks cannot afford to have him go through a sophomore slump.
No, they certainly cannot, and I think that the fact that I believe he will is one of the reasons I'm not as high on the Diamondbacks as some other people. Now, the number 5 starter likely is going to be Patrick Corbin this year. Patrick Corbin in the majors last season went 6-8 with a 4.54 ERA. In the minors was pretty successful at both AA and AAA. He's going to give you an ERA probably around 4.50. So it's your number 5 starter. You're not expecting this guy to go out there and win a Cy Young. He's not going to blow anyone away, but he'll eat up innings. He'll get you 5 or 6 innings, and that's the job out of a number 5 starter. And it's not like Patrick Corbin is locked into being this number 5 starter. They have numerous other options. And not only him, Daniel Hudson, who struggled last year, ended up going out for the season with Tommy John surgery. And many people expect that he won't be back till probably the All-Star break this year around that time. But 2 years ago in 2011, he was 16-12 with a 3.47 ERA. That's a guy who you can really throw back into this rotation and see him have success. And if you look at what happened to Daniel Hudson, he went from throwing 90-plus innings in 2010 to throwing 222 in 2011. And in 2012, he needed Tommy John surgery. That's what happens when you throw a ridiculous difference in innings and then come back the next year. It's unfortunate, but it's how things work for teams a lot of times, and that was my point on Wade Miley. So you could throw Daniel Hudson into that 5 spot when he comes back. In the meantime, you also have Randall Delgado, who's the top prospect of the Atlanta Braves, who they acquired in the Justin Upton deal. Randall Delgado went 4-3 last year with a 4.06 ERA. Didn't blow anyone away. Actually went 4-9 with a 4.37 ERA. Didn't blow anybody away, but he has tremendous stuff from every time I've watched him, and I expect him to figure it out. I don't think him or Corbin is going to give you anything amazing this year, but if one of them was more likely to be a solid starter that you can count on 6 or 7 innings for, I think it would be Randall Delgado. And then, Justin, you also have Tyler Skaggs, who we'll get to a little bit more later on. But out of those guys, who are you looking at as your 5th starter?
The fifth starter is really up in the air, with Daniel Hudson going to be out till the All-Star break. It's mainly the competition between three guys, Corbin, Skaggs, and Randall Delgado. But the favorite for me has got to be the Tyler Skaggs, the guy who I've been running high on for the Arizona Diamondbacks organization for quite a while now. This guy has what it takes. I'll get into more in depth as he's going to be a part of our prospects talk here in a little while. But my favorite right now is going to be Tyler Skaggs, who they acquired from the Los Angeles Angels, or who they acquired from the LA Angels. I think in the I don't think it was a Joe Saunders trade, but somehow they got him over from the LA Angels, and I think he's got to be the favorite. I think Patrick Corbin does belong in the bullpen, actually, but because when you look at this team has David Hernandez, Brad Ziegler, Heath Bell. They have all these late inning type of relievers, but there's not a lot of guys young talented guys in this rotation. I don't know why I keep on saying rotation in the bullpen to come out, on a bad day, maybe possibly from Brandon McCarthy, Trevor Kale, or even Ian Kennedy. They don't have that young, talented pitcher that can come out in early innings. I think if the Diamondbacks are going to play it right and really do something, put Patrick Corbin in the bullpen, and then either give it to Randall Delgado and have Tyler Skaggs go at it during spring training until Daniel Hudson's 100%.
Once Daniel Hudson comes back, then that gives them another solid starter. We'll see how solid he comes back at. Now let's look at a couple guys in their bullpen. Their three big guys are J.J. Putz, who is their closer, Heath Bell, who's been a closer for the last few seasons with the San Diego Padres and the Miami Marlins, and then also David Hernandez. You have Brad Ziegler in there. But David Hernandez, let's start with David Hernandez. Last year went 2-3 with the 2.50 ERA. He gave them a tremendous season. He spent time in Baltimore as well. But the last 2 years in Arizona, he has had great success. Him and Ziegler are likely to be the setup man. Now you have Heath Bell, who I mentioned earlier on. Heath Bell will likely begin the year as a setup man or a middle reliever. No one's exactly sure what his role will be. He's not going to be a closer, and it's likely a one-year thing because either it'll work and they'll trade him away, or it won't work and they won't bring him back. But they didn't have to give up a ton to get him, and the Marlins are picking up a lot of his salary. It really just did not work last year. Saved a total of 19 games and 27 opportunities. Prior to that, though, he had 3 straight seasons of 40-plus saves in which he nailed it down for this Padres team after replacing Trevor Hoffman. So if J.J. Putz needs a day off where he gets back-to-back saves on a third day, you need Heath Bell to go out there, you have a nice option as a potential backup closer almost, so to speak.
That's also for the Arizona Diamondbacks, because like you said, you clean it up. You clean up the air like with right there. J.J. Putz, he needs an off day. You have the experience in Heath Bell coming over from the Miami Marlins, didn't connect last year. I like this because you know what, you have experience. You like I said before, you need an off day for J.J. Putz. Heath Bell is your guy, and then I don't see Heath Bell becoming the setup man. Because when you look at it, you have David Hernandez, who is a phenomenal pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and really the setup guy for J.J. Putz, and then you got Ziegler, who is also another setup man, and then you have the late inning guys. And that's still up in the air right now. Like I said, you got to put another pitcher, a young pitcher, which I mentioned, Patrick Corbin, to come in the middle reliever. So I really like the acquirement there from the Arizona Diamondbacks getting Heath Bell.
I do as well. And then your final pitcher is J.J. Putz. He is your closer. Spent a ton of years with Seattle, then got some injuries. Rehabilitated himself in New York and Chicago, and then the last 2 years has been very successful. Saved 45 of 49 in 2011. Last year he blew 5 saves, 32 of 37, had an ERA at 2.82. But the last 2 years he has been a pretty solid closer for this team and a guy that you feel pretty comfortable with. And if things don't work out, then you have Heath Bell as another option.
J.J. Putz, he's getting into his final years of his career. And you know what? I think he's going to have a repeat season from last year. I just hope that he doesn't blow as much saves as he did last year, blowing, the 4 or 5 saves that he did last year. But you know what? This is going to be his final stop in his career, and it's going to be time for Heath Bell. If the Diamondbacks even think about signing him to a long-term contract, I think that will be a solid thing for the Diamondbacks to have, a veteran who's at the closer role and Heath Bell to come in at closer. But you know what? Heath Bell is down to his final year, maybe 2 years of his career.
JJ puts. But yeah, finally going into the prospects is what we're going to look at next. We're also going to finally give you a prediction after that. Looking at the prospects of this team, who is their number one prospect, Justin?
Tyler Skaggs, man. Tyler Skaggs. This guy has everything. You know, he spent the past couple of years in the minor, or he spent the past couple of seasons down at the Diamondbacks. He got him over from the Los Angeles Angels in the Dan Herron trade in 2010. That was the guy I was looking for, not Joe Saunders. And this guy has what it takes to be a top pitcher in the future. I think he has the great fastball, which can be up in the triples. But you know what? On an average, this guy can pitch up to like 96, 97, which is really solid. That number 2, they got another pitcher named Archie Bradley. Archie Bradley, a right-handed pitcher who is estimated to be, or exact time for arrival off of MLB.com is 2014, and I do agree with that 100% because when you look at the rotation for the Arizona Diamondbacks, it's just stacked. Daniel Hudson, when he comes back, you got Randall Delgado. It's just going to push back Archie Bradley, who is going to be who was the number one in the first overall pick, the number 1 pick for the Diamondbacks in 2011. And then to wrapping up the top 3 prospects, you got Matt Davidson, who is going to be spending the season down at I think Double-A or Single-A this year. He's expected to be up with the team this season. More than likely, he's going to be up there when the rosters get expanded out. In September or August. Guy brings a solid bat, a solid power bat. With Sioux Falls, I think is what the Single-A team is for the Arizona Diamondbacks. 23 home runs, 76 RBIs, and had a solid batting average. I think it was 261 actually. Really, really solid prospect out of him. He's ranked number 41 on the top 100 prospects leaderboard on MLB.com.
All right, looking at this team, let's go with some best case and worst case scenarios. For me, the best case scenario is that Ian Kennedy pitches the way he did a few years ago, Aaron Hill plays the way he did last year, and Paul Goldschmidt almost plays himself into MVP consideration, and this team is able to go to the playoffs. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, though, is that Paul Goldschmidt doesn't develop the way we expect him to. Wade Miley has a disappointing season. Jason Kubel struggles with the power this year with Justin Upton out of the lineup. Cody Ross is a disappointment, and this is a 76-75 win team. I don't think that either of those scenarios are very likely. My guess is that you're going to get somewhere right in between 83 and 79 is my final prediction for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I have them in 3rd place. Justin, what are you looking at?
I have him in 3rd place too. I think this team for the future is good, but for right now, this team doesn't have the overall power that what the Dodgers have now. You can build a good case for the San Francisco Giants, who also have who has power there. But overall, I don't think this team has what it takes to to compete up with the Dodgers and the Giants right now. 3rd place is where I have it. Best case scenario for them right now, pretty much the player to watch for the team for me has got to be Ian Kennedy as well. Pitching wise, hitting wise, I'm gonna go off right here. I'm gonna go with Cody Ross here, because I think Cody Ross is that guy just waiting to get up to the 20 home run area for home runs, and just being that overall captain for this team. And for Ian Kennedy has got to get back to the groove that he was a couple of years ago, back in 2011. I don't expect him to be, 21 and a 4 with an overall pitching record. I'll be really happy. I hope the Diamondbacks will be happy with a solid, maybe 17 or 18 win season for Ian Kennedy. Worst case scenario for this team is not living up with the expectations of Aaron Hill, with Cody Ross and Miguel Montero and Prado. That's just the worst case scenario right there if they don't really have that good of a season.
There is our Arizona Diamondbacks prediction, and because we don't have this team winning the World Series does not mean we are Diamondbacks haters. I've learned from doing this last few years, people will come back to these videos, and knowing our luck, the Diamondbacks will win the World Series, and we'll look like idiots like we did with the Oakland Athletics video last year when we bashed them. But the bottom line is that is what we see as of February. That's where we see the Arizona Diamondbacks for 2013. Keep forgetting it's 2013. That's where we see the Arizona Diamondbacks. Justin, who are we looking at tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to be going off and talking about the Houston Astros, a new team in the American League West.
Should be exciting. It's a bright new future for the Astros, or at least it's new. I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Gossi. This is the 30 Clubs, 30 Previews. Day 1 is in the books. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you later.